I think we're on.
All right.
We're on. We're on. Hey, Master
Hey.
of the TDS. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. A little bit nervous with this one because I think we're going to be doing something. We're going to be doing some pretty serious topics tonight. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yes. How has your day been so far? I know you're a few hours behind me. It's early in the morning, but yeah. How's your day?
It's been okay. Just been kind of hanging out. Was away for the weekend. Just got back last night. So not that late, obviously, but like, just kind of adjusting to get back. I wasn't out of town or anything, but I was just like visiting my parents. With the lockdown, they're the only people I could really see. So.
Okay. Am I allowed to kind of tell the folks at home your location, your county?
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. So you're going to know exactly.
So it's California, yes?
Yeah.
And what's the weather like in California at the moment?
Actually, strangely, it was raining yesterday. I don't know why. It just randomly rains in California. I mean, obviously, randomly rains places too. But like in California, It will rain one day, and then like in the same day, it'll be nice and sunny again. I don't know. It's supposed to rain this week, but that could mean that we'll get like a lot of rain, or that could mean we'll get like a couple days of rain and some sun. And I don't know. It's California weather for you.
Does it actually rain much in California? Because obviously we see a lot of the the kind of desert fires and the kind of the forest fires. They seem to crop up a lot nowadays in LA and California, don't they?
Yeah, they do actually. There was one actually not that far away from me a while back, but no, there's actually not that much rain. We're actually having they call it a drought. I don't really think it's a drought personally, but like I get it. We don't have much rain, so
has it just become the norm where it's just kind of dry all the time then?
Yes and no. It can get cold at night and stuff, like, but other than that, it's pretty tame. Okay. It's not anything crazy.
I'm in Blighty in the UK, and it's been very, very cold and damp over here. We've been having snow showers. Some of the country has been caught with snow. Does it ever snow in California?
Yes, but I don't think it does. It doesn't do it recently. It doesn't do it often. I think it's snowed once, like maybe 10 or so years ago, and wow. There was no. I've seen it snow once for like 2 minutes randomly someday. I think maybe about a year or two ago. But other than that, like it doesn't snow here. If it snows at all, there's like if it snows at all, it's like nothing, and it's very, very uncommon. So
yeah, we've had snow. So we are here tonight for the Nooner USA edition, and I think we're going to be talking about lockdown and how it's affecting people on a mental level, because that's kind of like your thing, isn't it? That's your field.
Yep, pretty much. It's a good way of summing it up.
So I'll just give you some background in the UK. Effectively, we've been in lockdown since end of March to varying degrees of strictness. I still class it as one lockdown, so I think we're on about 305, 306 days of lockdown. I know there are some people who are actually working, like key workers, like shop workers and the medical workers and stuff, and lorry drivers, and basically the stuff that keeps the country moving. There are a lot of people at home, myself included. I've effectively been locked up with a 92-year-old since end of March, and there's been times where, you know, I'm a guy who would for 25 years wake up at 6:15 on a morning and do the routine of, of the day, breakfast, shower, sort the pets out, go to work, drive to work, gym, come home, sort tea, relax, etc., etc. As I said, for 25 years, I would wake up at 6:15 on a morning. So it's kind of like a muscle memory of getting up at that time. I now struggle getting out of bed for 10 a.m. on a morning. And I see, I recognize the signs of when the mental well-being is starting to go the opposite way. I think late mornings, late nights are very much connected in, but effectively you're missing the best part of the day. Yeah, so I know there's going to be a lot of people like me who are in a similar position, because I lost my job in August. So there's going to be a lot of people who have effectively got too much time on their hands, who are just living at home, not allowed to effectively go out. It's just bad on every level. It just feels like our freedom has been taken away from us. So with regards to the USA, what's the kind of where you are now? What's the situation with the lockdown where you are now?
It's not that great. There is things starting to open, but they keep changing kind of the guidelines for, oh, you can only have outside seating, oh, you can only have inside seating, but whatever. And I want to take a minute to say hi to DeBoss Official and Prismatics, because they're both Prismatics from Twitter, and DeBoss is actually one of my old YouTube friends. So good to see you guys. But basically, it's not that great over here. A lot of places are open. It was worse before, but they're like limited in how much they can have. Like even like haircuts, for example, like they have to cut people's hair outside. Like they can't do it inside. They have to have they have a whole like outdoor setup kind of thing because they don't allow them to do it inside. And it's really crazy. And they keep changing, oh no, today we're having this, today, oh, it's this. So it's difficult. I'm one of the lucky ones. I was actually, because of not only am I a associate marriage and family therapist, but I actually am trained in a couple different kinds of therapy that are kind of advanced. And because of that, I get clients from all over. So I was actually seeing clients over, video and stuff before.
Are you still working at home then, or working
for
from
the
home?
For the most part, yes. Recently, I've been going into the office twice a week. I used to do that before, COVID. But there's a couple changes going on because we're moving offices because and closing down one, and it's a long story. But basically, there's a couple things going on behind the scenes that that's making it a little bit more difficult. But for the most part, I do work from home. But I was lucky that I was also working from home before the pandemic even hit, and it made the transition a bit easier. I know a couple friends of mine, colleagues in the field that had to go from seeing clients in person to only seeing them over the phone or video or whatever. And it's a big change if you're not prepared for it. So a lot of them were struggling. And I guess I was just a little lucky that I was already doing that. So I was somewhat familiar with it.
And how do you think that's affected the clients by not having the personal kind of, the personal touch? Because, everything's now over video link, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well, most for the most part. Some clients actually don't prefer like to do it over the phone. Some people prefer to do it over video or
Yeah.
just audio and no video, whatever. It depends. But it has affected it because there's definitely. I mean, I was a little more used to it, mind you, because I had been doing it before the pandemic. But it definitely has
Okay.
impacted, the type of clients we get to come in. Some people haven't wanted to come in, because they only want to have therapy in person, and I can definitely understand that,
Yeah.
as a therapist. But like at the same time, it like well kind of can't do much to change that, and it's been difficult. It has made it where clients will tend to. I get a lot more emails from clients now, and
Yeah.
usually they're in because the clientele that I see the most is people with OCD, and unfortunately, people with OCD can be affected by anxiety and stress. And
Right.
so, with everything going on, obviously, stress levels and anxiety levels are a lot higher than they normally would be. And as a result of that, uh, a lot of clients, are constantly in crisis, coming in, freaking out, and it's hard because they're very obsessive, very, difficult to manage. But so I guess the only thing that really I feel has changed for me personally, I was a little used to the video and stuff, but what's changed for me is the amount of client contact via like emails and stuff. Like I'll get like maybe around 40 or so emails a week. And
Okay.
that, now versus before, I would have said it was significantly less. So,
Right. When did in California do you have to wear a mask?
yes, but unfortunately, so depending on your location, people will sometimes wear masks. There are different communities that'll wear masks more.
Right.
Unfortunately, where I'm currently living, we're supposed to wear masks, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people who just don't care, and they're like, "Hey, I don't have to wear it."
Because I have a few friends on Facebook and what I hear over YouTube as well, and it seems to me that I've seen these people go on large bike rides together or having these get-togethers, no masks, no, they just don't seem to. It seems to me as British as somebody from over here, and what I see is it just seems to me that some people just I don't know, do they not care or do they not kind of get what's going on? I don't know.
I unfortunately think that they do get what's going on. They just don't care for the majority. I think it's something that inconveniences them, or maybe it's perceived that way. I mean, on the one hand, I can understand, not wanting to wear the mask and having it be a hassle, and I get it. But at the same time, it also is such an easy thing to do to be safe. And
Yeah.
people who don't do it, it's like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe wearing a mask isn't that good, isn't that, protective or whatever. There's a bunch of different studies out on it, but it's such an easy thing to do. Why wouldn't you do it?
It takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds. Is it socially frowned upon over there? Because it's got to the point now that it's if you go into a shop, it's law that you've got to wear a mask, and it's socially frowned upon. I think you can even get fined or refused entry.
It's I don't know about fines. I do know there's refused entry. I also know, unfortunately, that there are people who will come in, go in with a mask and then take it off when they're in there. Why? I don't know. But I guess for the most part, yes, it is socially frowned upon.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it depends on the community you're a part of. In some communities, people are like very anti-mask and like, no, we don't care. And then there are some who are very strict, and then there are some kind of like me who's in the middle, gets the idea that okay, I don't like masks, but I'm going to do it because I want to be safe. But for the most part, I would say it's frowned upon.
Okay. Could I obviously I don't want to get political on this channel. That's something I avoid, but could I just ask a small question?
Mm-hmm.
We got the feeling over here that ex-President Trump he didn't kind of take it seriously like we have over here, kind of like, making it law for people to wear masks, or it just seemed not to push the issue about it. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, he actually, unfortunately, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go into politics either. I have my views, but I do think
Best
that
to avoid.
I do think that that Trump and unfortunately the government in general, are very, very. They could have done a lot better. And
Right,
if you're
that's the
supposed
point
to,
I was kind of making. That it just seems to me that they just maybe just did enough.
I
I
don't
don't
even
know.
know if they did that. Like, if you're
Really?
supposed to be somebody, like if you're somebody in charge or in government or something like that, and
Yeah.
you are supposed to be a role model of what to do,
Oh
you
yeah.
shouldn't get caught
You
somewhere.
look up to these people. Yeah.
You shouldn't get caught somewhere without a mask at all. It shouldn't be even like a question. It should be like, you can't just be like, we all need to wear masks, but then you decide to go on a plane and fly for the holidays to your family, or you decide to, and that bothers me.
Yeah.
Again, not trying to get too political, but that does bother me. I think that more could have been done. Do I think that some people care more than others? Yes, obviously. But
Why do you think the issues with people not wearing masks is because they don't like to be told what to do, or something else? What's the rationale behind I'm not wearing a mask?
I would think that it's kind of a combination of both. It's the idea that also, to be fair, masks are very uncomfortable depending on what you're doing. Like, if you're someone who wants
Yeah.
to go jogging or whatever, wearing a mask is torture. Like, I get it. But at the same time, I think it is more also, oh, you don't get to tell me what to do. But I do think if masks were something that were like very comfortable, I think there'd be less people coming out and kind of being like, I don't want to wear it. I think the combination of the fact that it's just it's not very good looking, it's not very comfortable. I think, and the fact that like people are like, you need to wear it, and then they're going out and doing things that really they shouldn't be doing.
Just the opposite.
Yeah, that it sends the message that, oh, rules for thee but not for me, kind of thing. And I think plays a very big part in why people right now are kind of like, hey, I don't want to wear a mask, I don't like being told what to do, you're not doing it, kind of thing.
There was a stigma about that at the beginning over here, but then it was basically the government kind of said, well, if you don't wear a mask, don't think about yourself. You're affecting other people. You are potentially putting other people's lives as well as your own at risk, and it's not kind of your right to think that you know better and that you can do this, that, and the other. And there are consequences. And wearing masks are an inconvenience, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing really, is it? I just think people just don't like to be told what to do.
No, I definitely agree. I think that, I would understand if it was like something like you like, let's say like it was a mask you had to like put together every time and like screw things in. Like, if it was a big hassle to do, I'd be like, okay, I can understand why people are like, more against it. But you're right. It's not something so difficult to do, and there are consequences, and people are just like, nah, I don't want to do it. And I don't really get it, to be honest. I want to understand, but
Yeah.
I'm right. You're right. I think it's very much the I don't want to be told what to do kind of thing.
With what I've seen on the news and the stage we're at the UK, I think with the USA, I would probably say maybe you're 6 to 8 weeks behind us with the
I would hope
stage of
so.
and I just think you guys, we've got it bad over here at the moment. The Christmas gatherings, the people who mixed at Christmas, that's starting to come through the system now. And as I said on a previous stream of mine, the government did its best to kind of I would not say cancel Christmas, but just say, look, you got to be careful. And I just don't think people they just, oh, it's Christmas, fuck it, we know better. And now it's starting to filter through the system. And I kind of think, with what I've seen, that you're probably not at that stage yet. You're probably maybe a couple months behind us with that kind of big second wave of fatalities that are coming.
Yes and no. I do think that some of it's already started. Unfortunately, like I know a couple people close to me who have gotten COVID, and because they haven't been careful and stuff like that. But I do agree. I think we're a little bit behind you still, and a lot of people. And so I get it. You want to be together with your family on Christmas or the holidays, but at the same time, you need to be careful. And I think people are now kind of just now starting to wake up to, well, okay, we went and did this, and look where we are now, kind of thing.
Right, because over here, as I said, this is 300, and I think it's either 5 or 6 days of lockdown. As I said, varying degrees. At first, the first month, we were totally locked down. Everything was closed for about 2 months, and then stuff started to, things started to reopen because of the summer, and apparently COVID doesn't operate well in hot weather. And then towards the end of the year, obviously the weather is changing, so it's becoming colder, and that's when COVID starts to thrive. So effectively, we've gone back now after Christmas into a pretty much strict lockdown where the schools are closed. It's only effectively essential people who can do stuff. And I technically, for us over here, this is lockdown number 3, technically, but they're still classing it as lockdown 2. I just think people are not going to want to be locked down again. I think lockdown fatigue has set in, and I personally, I just think that people are not going to stand for it much longer. I don't know if
I totally agree.
It just feels like we're in prison. Yeah,
and people are angry. Like, I get it. It's and this is as a therapist, not well as a person as well as a therapist. You can see it. People need to get out. People need to do things for mental health purposes, regardless of anything else. And, I feel like a lot of what's been going on in the world lately could have been, is due to the fact that everybody's trapped inside. There's no outlets for stress. There's no outlets for, nothing to distract yourself. You're stuck in you're seeing the same 4 walls every day. And, people are fed up.
It's prison. It's prison.
I agree. I'm really tired of myself.
It's prison. But the difference is there's no bars, or the doors are not locked. Effectively, your front door is open, but you're not allowed to go out. Really, it just feels like a waking nightmare of prison. And I just think people are just. We are what now? It's nearly 10 months over here, and we are worse off than what we were at the beginning. And over here, everything should have been locked down maybe early January. But what they did was all these people who were abroad, where the hotspots of COVID was, they just kind of let them in. Instead of, I just think the government should have said, look, right, stay where you are. We will make sure that you are looked after. Because I think ultimately that would have been cheaper than effectively stopping the economy.
Yeah, I agree.
And what they did over here was, as I said, they locked down last week of March, when they should probably have locked down middle of January, maybe probably this time last year. So a year ago. So, and then what they did was in March, the week before lockdown, they had a horse race meeting where there was like 300,000 people per day at this horse race meeting from where it's quite a big event. So you would get people coming in from all over the world. So effectively just spreading the disease instead of that should have just been, it's not happening. It's not taking place. So it was just a calamity of bad timing, stuff that should have happened. And I genuinely think the government just thought, we'll lock it down for 2 months. Summer will come and it'll all be all right. But 1 year later, we are we are worse off. And it seems to me that the amount of people who they thought were going to die, who they were trying to protect, have still died anyway, and there's still more coming through the pipeline. I personally, I just think they should have just let it run its course. They've been speaking about herd immunity, but how can you get herd immunity when nobody's allowed to be in contact with each other or catch the disease? So I just don't get it.
Me neither, honestly. I mean, I get you have to look at both sides of the coin and understand that that they're trying to protect us. They weren't doing it purposely at first to kind of manipulate people, but it kind of became that, I think. And also they said, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, whatever. And here we are a year later. And you're right. It does feel like nothing has changed, honestly. If anything, it's gotten worse because now before people were like, okay, I don't like this idea, but 2 weeks, a couple months, no problem. And now it's affecting people's businesses, it's affecting their livelihoods, long term. It's not just oh, well, for 2 months you're going to be okay. It's like, no, well, we're going for a little longer than that. And that's kind of crazy, I think. So
I have not earned any money since August. And I know for a fact there are people worse off than me who over here were self-employed. And when lockdown occurred and we went on the furlough system, they kind of missed the criteria. So there's people who were self-employed, taking the step from being employed to, jumping up and doing their own businesses. They've not earned any money since March. And I just don't, I just feel for these people. I know there's people who have died, and I don't want to belittle any of that because it's terrible. But people are just suffering on every level. And as I said, the main reason why you're on here tonight is we're going to be talking about the mental aspect. And I don't even think we've even scratched the surface of what's to come with that.
Yeah, we definitely have not. I can only honestly see things if this continues, and I'm really, really hoping that something changes, but it doesn't look, unfortunately, like that's going to be happening. And I hear you also. You want people to stay safe, but at the same time, okay, well they're not. They're going to stay safe. They're not going to pass on the disease, but does that mean giving up everything you've worked for in life? And it has a big impact on people.
It does. It just people just want to go to work, earn some money, buy some nice things, have a comfortable life. Just do what people do, and we've all been dropped into this alien world of isolation, and as I said, people have not earned any money since March, and I'm fortunate that I live with my 92-year-old father, who he helps me, and I help him. But I know there's people who are on their own who not earning money, or they've not got anybody to talk to. So I just get the feeling there's going to be people when they start going inward. It's just not good on any level for that person, because I've had some dark times, and there's been times where, as I've said to before on a chat on a previous stream, there's been times for me a good day would be when I didn't consider driving my car at high speed into a brick wall to end it all. So if I had a day where I hadn't thought of doing that, for me that was a good day. But there was times when I would think about doing that 3-4 times a day, that I just think I'd be better off dead. And my problems back then, because it was about a year ago, I was like I didn't recognize the signs. I just thought, well, this is just how it is, isn't it? And I got pulled into the office by my boss at the time and said, "Are you okay?" Well, how do you mean? He says, "I recognize the signs of somebody who's depressed, who's just basically who's just functioning." Yeah,
going through the motions.
Yeah. It is a term, isn't it? Is it something like functioning depressive, or?
I believe there's a specific term for it. For the life of me, can't think of it.
I'm sure it's something. I'm sure functioning is in there somewhere. It's basically you're just like it's the routine of the day, but you're just performing like a zombie.
Yeah, you're just doing it and not thinking about it.
To me, it just felt like I was juggling 35 juggling balls and trying to keep them all up in the air. And it was just the most simplest thing it could just send me over the edge. And I could get really angry sometimes, because apparently depression and anger go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Well, it depends. Some people get angry, and some people, unfortunately, sometimes they turn their anger inward. But yeah, they do, unfortunately, work together to sometimes the detriment of people.
So going back to on a basic level, what would is there any kind of catalyst for depression? Is it a bodily response, or?
So that's a good question. It depends on the person ultimately.
Right.
Because everybody's different. There could be certain things. It could be something like the straw that broke the camel's back, and kind of be like, oh, well, this thing happened and that pushed you over the edge. Or it could be, something that maybe was always there, but you were distracted. You had things to do. Some people who, could get out of the house to go to work. Sometimes they, for example, unfortunately, we're having a crazy influx of clients right now who, they're coming in and they're also depressed, because they lost their job. They worked so hard for it, and they don't have work and they don't have whatever. And that alone can, trigger depression. Obviously, there are many different kinds of depression that can, occur. But it really right now, I think the majority of people are experiencing kind of, a big significant loss that leads to depression. And it's very unfortunate, because we can help them. We can give them, skills to cope. We can teach them, how to deal with these feelings. But ultimately, I can't give them their job back.
It's people's lives are. I tell you what's affected me the most. It's as I said previously, it's the routine. I think humans are just geared up for routine and doing things at A, B, C, D. Like set times. It's routine. So I have a cat, and cats, like humans, they have routines.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, for 25 years, I would get up at 6:15, and then the routines, would begin. And I think with what's gone on, people's routines have just gone out the window. And the routine of working, it's almost like it doesn't give you time to think about stuff that's going on because you're in the routine of getting up, breakfast, driving, work, etc., because that ultimately is good for your brain chemicals because it's just, I think as humans we're just geared up to do that. And what I found is I've got far too much time on my hands now. And that's where you can go inward or going to bed late and just kind of throwing everything kind of like 180 degrees around. So it's stuff that you are doing becomes totally alien, and it's probably not good for you in the long run. People's routines have just gone out the window. And I think people will have too much time on their hands, especially if they're not working. And I just don't think that's good in combination with not earning money as well and worrying about what's happening or how am I going to pay the bills. I just, as I said, I just think this tsunami, because it's going to be a tsunami of mental health or suicides, or people are just so desperate that they just don't see a way out. And nobody asked for this.
Nobody expected it either.
Yeah, I just think I can only speak from how it is in the UK. It almost feels like by going into lockdown and trying to protect lives, it's almost created a rod for it's created a rod for our own back. If you know what they say, this is the new normal, and I don't see personally how we can get out of this. I just think I genuinely can't see how we can get out of this, and I just think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. I don't know what it's like in the States.
No, it's pretty similar. It's the same, and it's really unfortunate. You kind of keep waiting for that, notification or something, anything to tell you kind of, hey, things are going to be okay. We're going to go back to normal. And there's not even really a time frame for that either. And you're absolutely right. People's routines get interrupted. They've done everything. They've done things the same way, for many, many days. And something, changes. And again, that can sometimes happen, without what's going on. But especially here, when you have more time to think about things and you have more time, downtime. I mean, some people can manage it. Once in a while, you have a little more downtime, you make do. But when it becomes a regular thing, it's not just I don't have a routine. It's also that you have more time to think about everything around you that's going wrong and looking at the world and looking at, everything. And it's very, very unfortunate because, you start to think more about it, and oh my gosh, look at what's happening to the world, and you start to feel worse, and it's almost like a cycle of oh, my routine's gone, I pay more attention to the things I don't like, which makes me worse, makes me feel more depressed, and then I've had, and I can disclose, it's obviously not with names or anything, but I've had some emergency calls that I had to take, where people were like, I feel like I'm gonna do something. So and as a therapist, of course, I have to take those calls, obviously.
Right.
But I've had definitely more of those than I've ever had before during this, and it's definitely has to do with the routine. Because again, a lot of people, even if they weren't, maybe some people didn't have super high paying jobs or whatever, maybe had multiple jobs, but the idea was they had something to do. They weren't always around. And if you're just sitting in the same place and you can't go for a walk, or you can't head to the mall or to the movies, and even that, I mean, if you have downtime and you're able to do that, you can kind of make it through. But here we're taking away, not only we're trying to be safe, but we're taking away the ability for people to make a living. And we're also taking away the ability for people to have other outlets for their stress. So they're trapped in there. They have all this time to think about everything that's going wrong because it doesn't seem like anything's going right. Yeah. And that's why therapy and mental health is I think it's more important than ever. It's the only way, unfortunately, we're going to get through this.
I think in the future you are going to be very busy.
Oh, it's already started happening. I've had the past couple weeks, since New Year's, I've had a really big influx of clients. I think I had 6 intakes one day.
Right. Right.
And that was just in one day, like 6 calls of people wanting therapy. And that usually I get like, a couple a week, maybe, but
Right.
this was like in one day, I get 6 intakes. And it's like, it's crazy.
See, in America, the attitude to mental health is totally different to what it is over here. Um, Over here, it's just very much you get on with it on your own. It's part of life. You get on with it. But I just don't think over here. I just don't think that's going to be good enough. And I don't. I don't think the mental health is coming through over here at the moment. It's briefly mentioned and talked about. One of the main reasons why I set my channel up is I think talking, even if it's about the weather, it's talking with somebody, it's interacting, and people are just stuck indoors. There'll be people on their own with nobody to talk to, and it's for me. This is good therapy because, as I said, my father is 92. We don't have a lot in common, really. And there's that kind of father-son thing going on, which I'm sure you've seen many times.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I kind of set this up for, because it is good to talk, isn't it?
It definitely is. And that's why I think you're doing a very good service because, again, people don't have anywhere to go. They can't leave. They can't leave the house. They can't do anything. And, it's not like they could go out and be social or do anything. It's not. It's not possible right now. And so I think that it's more important than ever, even if, people aren't, and there are people, even in California and other places that aren't too keen on mental health. They haven't been to therapy before. They don't like the idea of it. But even just talking is never been more crucial right now. It's never been more important. And I actually want to touch on what Prismatics in the comments mentioned. He said that the elderly and high-risk groups are suffering the most. And I definitely agree because they have, where not only are they dealing with, the everything else that we're dealing with, but they're also at high risk. So they have that. And I mean, if you're younger and you're in pretty good health, chances are you'll be okay. But
care homes over here with elderly, when it first started, they were just ravaged.
Yes, same here. It's very unfortunate.
I've said previously on this channel, human beings, the human species is very, very clever. It's very clever at keeping people alive longer. The standard of living past 40 years has just infinitely grown, where now, say 40 years ago, it would be considered a good innings if you made it to 70. And now there's people, because of the standard of living and medical science, people can live to 100, in their 80s, 90s, 100. And when you get to my age, you kind of get pragmatic about stuff. You kind of see it how it is. Things I say, some people might get offended, but I try and just keep it real, which is part of the channel's mantra as well. Just keep it real. And obviously people have died, especially in care homes, and these are people's parents or grandparents, and I get that totally. I think this, in combination with the COVID, it's particularly virulent, isn't it? This strain. I just think people are living. We are living longer too soon. The evolution of the species hasn't caught up with the medical science, so it's kind of creating a top-heavy population with lots of old people. and it does sound very mercenary. But these older people are particularly. In fact, it's not just older people. It's, as I said, the younger people, especially children, seem to be kind of immune to it, don't they? So
For the most part, they take care of themselves. Yes.
yeah, I've said previously, viruses just do what viruses do, don't they? They don't care.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
I just think maybe we've just become a little bit too. Maybe this could be an adjustment. Mother Nature, yeah. Because I don't think we can outsmart Mother Nature, and it just seems kind of like a perfect storm of various components that have just kind of put us in this position. I don't know how you feel about that.
I kind of agree. I mean, I do feel like that definitely is a component. This definitely can be seen that way, but also at the same time, I really think what it might not necessarily only be Mother Nature. I'm thinking it's specifically has a really key element of timing here. I think if this had happened a year ago, whatever, maybe things would have been different. But it happened at exactly the worst possible moment.
Well, there's never a good time for anything really. But how do you mean? How do you mean it would have been different a year earlier? Or
well, unfortunately, this happened, during close to an election, and that influenced it quite a lot. I think if it had happened a year ago when the election was still a ways off, I think we would have gotten more information. And again, I don't want to get into the politics, but the idea was, and not that I trust mainstream media as far as I can throw them these days.
I wouldn't.
But you could get no information. Nothing, because it was all right. This politician did this and this politician did that and this person went here, and it's like people don't want to know that. They need to know, and again, I'm not saying we have to blindly follow what the mainstream media says, but it would have been nice to have gotten, some updates or whatever, and you can make your mind up. But there were like months where the only news was political. It was all political, and you couldn't get anything. And I think had this happened a year ago, maybe we'd still have been in the same situation. But I do feel like we would have gotten a little bit more clear communication, because there's a lot going on, around this, and I don't think that's helping at all either.
Okay, so with regards what you've just said, I think that was obviously an American thing, because over here, all we've heard about really is just COVID day in, day out.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, probably it's not. I'm not saying it's the same everywhere, but I'm saying specifically for here, it became this huge thing. Like when they had the riots, they were down the street from me. They were literally across the street from me. There was a Walgreens that was completely demolished. Like everything was happening here, and I'm not saying everywhere else was unaffected, obviously, but I think that especially in, here, it was just really the wrong time.
Yeah, I totally agree, because, as I said, we had an election last year. We had ours. So it was just basically COVID this year. And I understand politics is very, very big in your neck of the woods.
I know. And I think, unfortunately, I think it actually hurts us more than it helps us, to be honest.
I agree with that as well, because what I've seen the last few days, it just seems to be showbiz.
Yeah,
it just seems to be show business.
That's actually a really great way of describing it.
As a Brit, I maybe should concentrate on the politics instead of Katy Perry singing Firework. I don't know.
No,
as much as I like Katy Perry, it just seems too glitz and glam, too show business. I don't know, but yeah, that's. I would imagine that is an American thing, isn't it?
It definitely is, and it's again, as I said, it's extremely unfortunate, and I think, and maybe there could be other reasons, obviously, but I think one of the main reasons that you guys are maybe a bit ahead of us is because of what's going on here, and I think had that happened at a different time, maybe we'd be at a similar place. But again, I can speculate all I want, but we're here now. You there? Suddenly can't hear. Don't know if it's me. Did I disconnect? Oh, okay. I guess it's just me. Don't know what happened there. Hopefully he'll be back.
Are you there, Master? I think that was my end. I do apologize for that. Yes,
it's okay. I was just kind of like, wait, what happened?
The internet here is very, very slow, and I basically tether it to my phone, and luckily I've been okay up until now. So that was the first. I was kind of due a technology dropout, so I'm on Wi-Fi now, so we should be okay. So apologies for that. So we've just. I think we'll. Shall we call it a draw with the politics stuff? Because
yeah, I agree.
I think obviously you guys have got that out of the way now, so I would imagine there's still going to be kind of this transitional stuff going on, but I think you guys pretty much need to start concentrating on what you should have been concentrating on when we were last March.
I definitely agree.
All this COVID stuff. Hopefully, people will kind of start realizing now once the media have switched subjects that this is kind of the important stuff now, isn't it? So
yeah, it really is. It should have been the important stuff from the beginning, but what can you do?
But it's water under the bridge now, isn't it? So yeah. So yeah, I suppose there's no point crying over spilt milk now. So yeah, I think you're just gonna have to knuckle down now and kind of realize what's going on. As I said, I kind of get the feeling that you guys are probably maybe, as I said, 6 to 2 months behind where we are at the moment, because obviously your weather is different over where you are. You're more climate than kind of weather. So
yeah,
when as I said, when the weather's warm, COVID doesn't like warm, but obviously once the temperatures start going down, stuff's going to start happening. Briefly, do you think Biden is going to? Has he made masks compulsory then since he's been?
I think he's done. I've been trying to stay out of politics lately because I'm just it's a horror show. It's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely done. I know there's a mandate that was passed for federal land.
Right.
Other than that, I'm not sure. Again, it wouldn't surprise me. But I've been trying to stay out of it because it's literally, unfortunately, it's right now nothing but negativity. Nothing but negativity.
I totally agree. On the news over here, everything is just so joyless. There is just no joy anywhere.
Yeah.
Everything is just on a downer.
And that's not helping with people, especially because, again, as you said, people want to talk, people want to whatever, but then when there's what's surrounding them is literally, oh, here's all the negative stuff. And it's like, we're already living the negative stuff.
And as we kind of stumbled across each other on Twitter, didn't we?
Yes.
By a YouTube show that seems to concentrate on effectively negative stuff and bullying. Would you agree?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not mentioning no shows, but it was yeah, it was. My theory is obviously all the kind of TV studios and all this kind of woke stuff that's coming through, and all this racism from one side. The people on the other side, it's like almost like the bully. The bully becomes the bully,
Yeah.
and I. It's almost like it's 180 degrees on the other end of the spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. I wish, again, I thought, in the past, I remember a time when, people could discuss things and have different opinions and have thicker skin.
Yeah.
But now it just seems like all that's out the window now.
This Friday show, what we're talking about, I just don't think the people on there, I don't think they're any different than the people who they're accusing. It just seems to me they're probably just as bad now, but they think they're right, so that gives them the moral high ground. Whereas, do the other people think that?
I think actually well, to be fair, if you're looking from an outside view, obviously you're going to shift one way or the other. But ultimately, the issue here is that both sides think that they're right. And I'm not saying that one side's wrong, they're both wrong or anything like that. But it's because they're so convinced that they are right, they will go to whatever lengths to prove the other side wrong. And I think that's the biggest issue, is that it shouldn't really be about who's right. It should be about a discussion. It should be, I have my opinion and you have your opinion. You don't agree and I don't agree. But we don't have to spend all this time nitpicking at each other, attacking each other just to prove, oh, you're wrong because you did this and you're wrong because you did that. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't serve a purpose, sometimes, but I think the main issue is that people are so, for their convictions right now, but that's what causes a lot of the issues and a lot of the arguments.
But do you think with everything that's going on, I've kind of realised that there are bigger fish to fry, aren't they, with everything that's going on?
Yeah. And again, it's really silly because it's not just the different sides and thinking they're right. It's also the hypocrisy, unfortunately. It's the
we call it. We have a little saying on our channel, which me and this other guy, who's a writer who lives in New Zealand, came up with, and we say basically it's sheer fucking double standards.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
Totally. 2021 is the year of double standards.
It's also the year of people. Again, I don't know if it's just me who's noticed this, but I don't know if it's been accelerated by what's been going on, in the world. People do not have thick skins anymore. Every little thing, it doesn't matter what it is, it makes them explode. And it's like, it's okay to be upset, but your anger is not proportionate to what you're upset about.
As I said, I always say that if you send a tweet, you should always just step back for that moment and think how it's going to affect the person on the other side. And you are right. You have got to be thick-skinned, because at the end of the day, it don't make any difference really, does it? But people just fly off the handle far too easily. Yeah,
and I've seen recently, and this boggles my mind, what I've seen recently is people getting upset because, and again, I haven't followed this very closely, so I don't know what actor or whatever, but something came out about how apparently you're no longer allowed to yell at your kids because it's abuse. Have you heard this?
Well, we have something similar over here. In Scotland, they've banned smacking children.
Well, not the smacking that I can get behind, but now people are saying that you can't yell at your kids. If they do something wrong, yelling at them is verbal abuse. That's what I've heard now.
Well, so effectively, you have to reason with your mentally immature child who's say like 3 or 4. You have to kind of what you're saying is you've got to reason with them why something is wrong, or
Yeah, but that doesn't always work. Again, I'm not saying that you just haul off and scream at the top of your lungs, but like sometimes kids need structure. They need rules and stuff like
yeah,
that.
they need to know the boundaries. Yes.
Exactly. And how are they supposed to know if it's like, well, you shouldn't do that because they don't care. They're young kids. They're not going to care at that point. They're just not at that point in development.
They haven't got the mental capacity and development, have they?
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'm not condoning screaming at kids, obviously, but like to some degree, calling it verbal abuse is laughable to me because it's like, oh, okay, so what? How long until talking is verbal abuse? Like I don't get it.
Everything just seems to be psychoanalyzed these days and broken down to its base level, where you could either you do A, B, C, or D, and say E is bad and stuff like. You can't do things without it being totally deconstructed to see if it's good or bad. Whereas when I was if when I was growing up, if I was naughty, I'd get a clip around the ear.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, or I was shouted at. Whereas going back to what you just said, do you think you cause more damage by trying to reason with somebody who? It's almost like you're trying to put an adult's thinking into the mind of a 5-year-old, and
Yeah,
it doesn't work
it
because
doesn't work. Definitely, it definitely doesn't work. And
a 40-year-old is a 40-year-old.
yeah, I agree. But I do think that sometimes reasoning is important. Again, it depends on what's going on and what exactly your kid did. But trying to force these ideologies and these things that on kids who are too young to fully understand them is actually harmful.
There's with, as you said, ideology. This in recent years, there seems to be a lot of things coming out from nowhere and telling people how to do this, how to live their lives. If they do this, they're they're an ist, they're a phobe,
Yeah.
all this, and it's like, what the fuck? Even if you like Chris Pratt, didn't he? By people were accusing him of something, and then by him being totally silent, was effectively guilty.
Yeah, I know, and it's terrible because look, do I think that there are some things that people can break apart and there are issues with? Of course, but what I notice, and this is the biggest thing that I notice, especially, and maybe this is just me as a therapist or whatever, but what I notice is the amount of outrage and anger is not proportionate to what they're upset about. It's just not.
Do you obviously you're qualified in this? I'm not. Also, all I can say is from my kind of what I've seen. People of a younger age have seemed to have been protected from the hard knocks of life, like people of my age. They just kind of think they're in. I don't know if it's down to the parents saying, protecting them and doing the best for them and kind of giving them a skewed sense of reality. It's almost like these people give these people a smartphone as well, and they just seem to have free reign on. If I was in my early 20s, I'm 52, so I'm a grumpy old man. So if I was in my early 20s and I was out somewhere and I called somebody I went up to somebody and called them blah, 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 and then went, "You're a cunt," I'm going to get a smack in the mouth. Yeah. So I ain't going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I kind of, you know, I've been brought up. I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, these kids are not brought up this way. And again, I'm not blaming all parents. I know that some parents do their best, and sometimes it's out of their hands because sometimes it can be just exposure to peers, exposure to people online, exposure to different kinds of TV shows and stuff, especially these days. But the real problem is these kids are given whatever they want. They're coddled. They don't learn right from wrong, and they get so angry when they're right, and they it doesn't matter what you say to these people. You could bring them a 50-page article of every reason and disproving every point they make, and they will still call you the same. They will just call you a name.
That in combination with giving them a smartphone, which, as I've we've conversed on Twitter, is effectively just giving them a loaded gun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's different than a gun, but it definitely has the same impact in a sense where you're giving them literally an item that gives them free reign to voice their opinions and say whatever they want, and that's not always a good thing. I mean, expression of of things is important. I get it, being able to express yourself.
Yeah.
But there's expressing yourself, and then there's attacking and harming people, and I think that those two things have become very intertwined. And I think a lot of people make it a lot about, well, this is just me. This is who I am. But you can't, just because you can express yourself doesn't mean you should. You don't always have to make a statement about it. You can feel a certain way, but you don't always have to come out and be like, no, you're wrong. And here, because this is who I am. And if you don't like this, you're against me. And it's like, no.
They don't seem to have any boundaries anymore, and this kind of goes back to when they, this when you said about children. There's it's been made against the law to kind of shout at your children.
It hasn't been made against the law yet. They're putting it.
Right. Okay.
I've heard about it on Twitter. I heard again. I haven't followed this story because I don't care about celebrities anymore. But I think some celebrity posted some video where her mother yelled at her or something like that, and people were on Twitter were screaming about how it's verbal abuse and how it's terrible. And it's like, no. I'm not saying that somebody should, scream at their kid all the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the reason yelling is important is because sometimes, like, for example, if your kid runs into the street, a crowded street with cars, right? They could get hit. They could get really injured. So you're going to yell, not because you want to be mean, but because you want to impart how not to do that again. It's the same thing here. It's like sometimes you have to yell. Sometimes you have to say things, not because you want to be mean, but because you want them to learn from experience. And if they don't have that, they don't know right from wrong. They don't know to be careful.
Kids are fantastic at pushing boundaries and pushing parents to the limits.
Yeah.
And as I said, when I grew up, if I'd done wrong, it would be a clip around the ear or shouted at, because kids are great. Kids are just kids, and they are just brilliant at pushing boundaries, either maybe not consciously. It's just what kids do, isn't it? They just haven't got the mental capacity, the kind of, the brain pathways to kind of, they are basically learning about life, and they just seem to have the art form of pushing parents over the edge.
Yeah, and
down to an art form.
Parents need to push back sometimes.
They do. They do.
If they don't, the kid becomes entitled. They think they can push whatever they want.
It kind of ties in very nicely with this behind a smartphone with no boundaries. So can you imagine what it's going to be like, say, in 10 years' time?
I don't even want to think about it.
It's just going to be a free-for-all. And I just can't understand, why do people just concentrate on the negative so much?
I can actually, I actually, unfortunately, can think of a good reason for that. It's because, unfortunately, and this is going to sound very strange, but negativity sells. Negativity people tune into. People aren't always, and you think that, like, it's like, for example, the news. When do you hear about good things happening on the news? You
We've
don't,
heard nothing.
because good things don't sell. People tune in to hear negative. And it's an unfortunate, because again, negative draws people in. That's one of the reasons that it sells so well. So people aren't going to go out to look for the good. And that's really terrible, because you need some of that, especially now when we're surrounded by so much negativity. But it's negativity sells. People are going to talk about what they think will get them the most attention. And whether there could be many reasons why they're craving that attention, parents didn't give them enough, they didn't feel like they gotten, included in school, whatever, and they want people to pay attention, but no one's going to pay attention to positive. It doesn't work. They have to go negative, and it's become almost the only way to be noticed, or to put yourself out there, if you get what I mean.
And do you think this negativity, as I said, going back to in combination with a Twitter account or smartphone, creates the ultimate dopamine hit?
Yes. Yes, it does, because it's the idea. It used to be, okay, well, you could be negative and people would talk with you, right? But it wasn't instantaneous responses. Here, if you post something on Twitter, depending on who sees it, they could respond right away. You could get likes, and it's the idea that, wow, I am important. People care about what
it's a reward system, isn't it?
Exactly. And because of that, it's instantaneous. It's instantaneous. There's no time in between. And that, I think, is the biggest issue. If there was some time, right? Like, let's say there was somehow a way to implement, like, okay, well, when you post something, a half hour has to go by before people could comment on it or something.
Yeah.
Again, not practical, but you get what I mean, is that it wouldn't give them the instantaneous response. It becomes an addictive behavior and a rewarding behavior when it's instant. It's so easy to do. It doesn't require any effort. If it required effort or required waiting, people wouldn't do it.
When does the human brain stop kind of developing? Because I know the body develops up to a certain point. Is it early 20s?
I think it's, yeah. I think it's.
Is the brain later?
No, I've heard that. I think that, again, I can't be certain on this, but I'm pretty sure the brain stops developing at early 20s, I believe. Again, I think that you continue to grow as a person, obviously, past that point. But the mind itself, from what I've heard, is it at a certain point it just it stops. That's why it's so crucial in the early years of someone's life for them to learn structure, for them to learn right from wrong, because at a certain point it becomes ingrained into who they are. And if they don't get that crucial piece of development, eventually it's too late.
I have seen, the electronic babysitters where a parent just throws an iPad in front of a kid, in front of a child. That ultimately can't be good for that child's well-being in the long run.
It's not at all. I mean, there are ways to use the iPad in good ways. There's learning programs and stuff, like, and if you're monitoring it or whatever, I can see how it could be a useful tool. But at the same time, it's also training people to kind of close in on each other, themselves, or giving a dependency on this object.
Yeah, the smartphone is probably the greatest invention of the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Steve Jobs had an idea of all the negatives?
Maybe, but again, even if you saw this coming, years and years ago, I don't think anybody thought it would get this bad. And that's unfortunate. I think that logically, looking at it now and looking back, we can say, well, we saw the signs. It makes sense. But at that point, if we reverse it, where you're at that point and you're looking ahead, how would you know? You wouldn't know.
Yeah, because going back to the brain development, I would imagine that the peak of kind of brain development would be late teens, early 20s.
That's one of the most crucial. Well, yes and no.
You was
But
just about to say one of the most crucial times. I probably think it is one of the most crucial times for development. It's almost
yes,
like
yeah, I agree.
early on and probably later on.
Yes and no, and I'll explain also. I think people really, and not saying that this is what you were doing either, but people need to also understand early childhood, early years are very
Yeah,
important too.
yeah,
They're extremely important. That's when child gets a sense of self-worth, identity, all that stuff. And if something throws a wrench in that, it affects the development later down the line too.
Have you been, as part of your training, have you learnt about all this?
Yeah.
Or,
I
right?
actually I do a particular kind of therapy. I don't know if you ever heard of EMDR.
No. So for the people at home,
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's basically based off of REM sleep, REM sleep
yeah,
cycle,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
rapid eye movement, and it's
yeah,
using eye movements when reprocessing memories. And as weird as it sounds, it's like having somebody follow your fingers. My wife jokingly calls it the Jedi mind trick because
yeah.
it literally looks like you're doing that. But it helps people reprocess memories and not doesn't change the memories itself, mind you. It changes what you think about when you look back at it. So, for example, let's say somebody was traumatized at a young age, right?
Okay.
Obviously, we can't change that. But
Yeah.
when they look back at that, they think, "Oh, it was terrible. I'm worthless," right? Well, with EMDR, we can change that to be something more like, "It was terrible, but I'm okay now," giving
Okay.
them a way to move on. And it sounds almost like mystical and stuff like that. And some people are a bit skeptical about it, myself included. But I've
Right.
seen how it can work, and it's very important. And a lot of the times, the memories that come up are not the ones around school or puberty. They're
Right.
early memories. My dad didn't come home one night, and my mom had to go out and find him. What is a child at a young age going to interpret from that? Dad was doing something he wasn't supposed to. It's because they don't know better. And so going back there and reprocessing it is changing basically the way they look at it. So they don't look at it and go, "Dad betrayed me." It's like, that was bad, but he's not a bad person or something like that. Again, it's a bad example, but the idea is that by doing that, it creates almost like a chain reaction in a sense where, because again, early childhood is going to influence your behavior later on. And if we can
It is.
change the way that you look back at it, so you don't look at it as "I'm not good enough" or "I'm worthless," it's more "I'm good as I am" or something like that. That can really impact people down the line. And that's where, again, this is what I had to be trained in this. I had to give up like 2 weekends to be trained in this. And it's actually, this method of EMDR is being used on soldiers,
All right.
coming
Okay.
from war and stuff, because it's very, very powerful. It sounds weird, but it's very, very powerful. I would urge anybody to take a look at it. It's very interesting stuff. But the idea behind it is it's very powerful in helping them, reprocess memories. And I've seen, I mean, I've been a therapist for a while, but since learning EMDR and using it, I've seen the amazing, amazing change that can be done in one session, even. And I know
Right.
that sounds crazy, but like it can be, and it's very powerful. So, but again, it all comes back to the development of the mind. The memories that are coming up are not, "Oh, I was bullied in high school" or whatever. It's usually, "Oh, when I was younger, I wanted to play with the other kids and they told me to go away," or whatever. And again, we look back at that and we go, "Well, that's not a big deal," right? But at a you have to understand, if you're a young kid, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, "I'm not good to be with these kids. They don't want me." And as a
Yeah.
young kid, you're not going to understand why. You're not going to go, "Well, it's their problem." You're going to say, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough?" And that can very much impact people, you know?
I do remember when I was a child, I had similar instances where kids are kids. Kids can be nasty.
Yeah.
and just basically told to go away and stuff like that. But that's just part of being a kid and growing up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's creating that thick skin.
Yeah, and it's very important that they. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that every kid should be like ostracized from the group. I don't wish
Yeah,
on anybody, but it's some things in life are not going to be pleasant. The world is not always a pleasant place, but there are reasons behind why we experience things. There's logic behind it, and if people are constantly people can seek out the good, but
yeah.
it's when you seek out the good and try to forget the bad, forget the past, instead of learning from it, that's when it does the most harm.
With life, it can present you with the worst lows, and with everything that's going on, I think there's a lot of lows going around. But life can also give you the greatest highs as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what life is.
Yeah,
It'd be boring if it was all straight down the middle, wouldn't it?
yeah, it would be. People don't seem to realize that. People like I get wanting to seek out the good, and I honestly, right now, when you're surrounded by all this negative, you want to seek out the good. That makes perfect sense. But at the same time, if life was all sunshine and rainbows,
Yeah.
what would be the point? There wouldn't be any challenge. There wouldn't be any learning.
The some of the live streams I've done, we've tried to just say keep it positive. Don't go into like some of these sites that just start slagging things off,
And I agree.
and just concentrating on the negative. So we try, and it is so easy to slip into the negativity.
It's
It's
a
just
bottomless
so easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we try and keep it positive, but there's been times where we've just tried. I've had to rein myself in. As I said, with the
Same.
politics, we try not to. Politics is important, don't get me wrong, especially now, especially with what's happened over your yard. But we try and keep it to the minimum.
Of course, it's unfortunately politics is probably the most negative thing online. Period.
It's a very, very old two-party, divisive, tribalistic system. And as I've got older, I was left when I was younger, so that would be Democrat, wouldn't it, for you?
Mm-hmm.
I want something for everybody, because on my channel page I put there's their side of the story, there's your side of the story, and somewhere in the middle lies the
It's
truth.
the truth. Yeah,
And
totally agree.
I think people need to start waking up a little bit,
Yeah,
because we're too busy we've said this many times on my channel. We are too busy navel gazing and scrabbling about in the mud.
mm-hmm.
And excuse my French, it's fucking shit. It just grinds you down.
No, I completely agree.
And some people just seem to thrive off it. And as I said, in combination with going back to the smartphones and children, as you've said, I can hear your bird in the background. As you said, when children's brains are developing when they're young, is very, very important.
Yeah,
If you throw an iPad in front of them, that's not good later
you're
on.
creating a dependency from an early age. They're going
Yeah,
to depend on it more than you.
and they're not learning anything about yes, no, don't
Yeah.
touch that hot stove, or
The thing that kills me, and I see this so often nowadays, and it kills me, is parents pushing young kids in strollers and they're on their phones.
Yeah,
They're not even with the child. You talk to your child.
yeah.
It's important.
You've got that end of the spectrum, and then you've got the brain development towards the end of the cycle, kind of like late teens, early
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be coincidental that these are all these kind of social justice warriors and keyboard warriors and people who are online with their smartphones and iPads who are just angry. And it's just kind of hardwiring their brain at a crucial point in their life for just
Yeah. Yeah.
anger,
Exactly.
for anger.
Hmm.
When I was their age, we didn't have smartphones. We just wanted to go out and have a great time. Whereas
Yeah.
now they just want to stay at home destroying people.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I do think that technology can be a useful tool
It
when
can.
used in moderation. But there needs to be real world experience because these people on Twitter who constantly get mad, one of the main reasons is because they don't live in the real world.
It's the keyboard world, the world of the
Yeah,
internet.
you can't block somebody in real life. It doesn't work.
As I said previously, if I went up to somebody in the street and said, "You're a," I'd get a
Yeah,
smack. I'd
they
get a
would attack.
smack. I'd
Yeah.
get a smack in the mouth.
But here on Twitter, you can say whatever you want, and if you don't like it, just block them, and then you can continue to talk about them behind a block wall. You can't block people in real life. It doesn't work.
I was in I a couple of weekends ago. I just went up to the supermarket to buy some some food, and I was walking down the street and I saw a young girl, maybe 20, 21, with a dog, and I'm 52, and people of my age would just go, "Nice doggy," or "Morning," or "Good afternoon," or be sociable. And I said to this girl, "Yeah, I like your dog," and she just looked at me like I was a fucking alien.
Yeah, they don't learn social interaction the same way. Social media is replacing normal social interaction, and it's very unfortunate. Again, it can be a useful tool to contact people around the world, to keep in touch. I get it, but when it becomes your only social,
Yeah,
you don't have that interaction anymore. You don't know
I
how to behave. They'll stare at you like, "What are you doing here? Why are you talking to me?"
I felt very uncomfortable.
I don't blame you because again, you're not doing anything mean. You're like, "Oh, you have a nice dog," trying to engage, and they don't know how.
Especially now with everything that's going on. Um, when I walk down the streets, people kind of distance themselves from somebody on the same pavement sidewalk,
Yeah,
and it's like people are suspicious of other people
yeah,
by
it
kind of
becomes a thing now.
distance. Yeah, and it's just we are sociable animals, and it just seems to me we've gone back hundreds of
Yeah,
years to a very, very dark place.
we have all this technology, and it could be useful, but I think it's also set us so far back socially because it doesn't if it's used as something to improve social life or to
Life, yeah, yeah.
augment it, then it's good. But if it's used in place of a social life, they don't learn real world things they need to know.
Do you think this is going to create um, a mental problem with these people later on in life?
Absolutely. I really wish it wasn't the case, but I've already seen it.
Yeah, I just again, it's just another layer, isn't it? Of at the moment we've got the COVID stuff going on, and as you said that you've never been so busy. You've had people ringing up.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had so many people ringing up again. Before COVID, I was actually, if you believe it or not, I was actually having a little bit of a difficulty, getting the
really?
full caseload. Yeah, and then COVID comes around, and suddenly I'm booked. I literally had a client. I have clients trying to change schedules, and I used to be able to try to accommodate them or move something around. I can't. I don't have room.
Because I kind of think that older people would probably deal with what's going on better because they've got
Yes,
more life
yes,
skills.
yes. Well, it depends. If there's older people who have OCD, then those people come in as well because OCD can really mess people up. And again, with everything going on, it makes OCD worse. OCD thrives off anxiety, thrives off stress. And what are we living in now? You know?
With what you told me off air and what you've just, I personally think maybe at some point you should come back on here and we should just talk solely about OCD.
No, of course. I would be totally open to that.
Yeah, because yeah, that's the kind of hand washing and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff, isn't it?
yes and no. It actually can take other forms, which is what people don't seem to realize. It can be hand washing, it can be cleanliness, and obviously with COVID, I have a couple of clients who have the cleanliness issue, and with COVID, I really can't do much because I'm going to tell them not to be careful or to work on that. Right now, they want to be careful, and rightfully so. But there are other forms of OCD. It's not all about washing hands, and
Right.
it can be. It literally becomes where people cannot function. They just can't. They're overanalyzing everything. What is this person thinking about me? They think I'm stupid. They think I'm worthless. You didn't even know them. You don't know them.
We've been broadcasting for 1.5 hours and we've not even scratched the surface, have we?
No, definitely not.
Because we were going to talk about the fun stuff, but I kind of get the feeling that what we should do, if that's okay with you, schedule for another show, talk about the OCD, and then maybe another show afterwards where we just purely talk. What I will do is I'll get some of my geek friends on who are into Star Wars and stuff, and then we'll have just a good old fashioned geek out, which could be quite good.
That sounds great. Again, it depends on my availability, obviously, because as I said, I'm very busy with weekends are usually the best, I would say. But when it comes to, as I said, before COVID, I had like so much free time. Yeah. Now it's like, well, you're not having free time today. I sometimes have 7 clients in a day now.
Wow.
Back to back. I'm talking 15-minute breaks in between.
Wow. And I think it's just going to get worse, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I do my best to help, obviously, but.
And on a personal level, how does that affect you?
It's never been more important. Self-care. Self-care has never been more important right now for me. I mean, I play video games. I'll watch things on TV. I'll hang out with my wife. I can't stress enough how important my wife has been.
It's interaction, isn't it? It's interaction.
Well, yeah, and it's soon coming up as our second wedding anniversary, and it feels like this year has been like a blur. But I would never have it any other way. I am so grateful to have her, and I don't think I'd be able to do what I do without taking time for myself, taking time away from it, because especially it's really hard when you're a therapist to not want to do more, but you can't be responsible for your clients on that level. You just can't. You're only one person.
Well, as I said, what we should do is we'll do the OCD thing, and then we'll just have a good old-fashioned geek out, because it'll be good for me and it'll be good for you.
Yeah, of course. I totally agree.
Normally, I have another guy on a Sunday night, because it's usually kind of like a two-way conversation with this guy. He's a proper presenter of many years, and he's really good. He's also a massive geek. So what we should do is we'll just do one more of these with the serious stuff,
of course,
and then we'll do the geek show.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds great.
We'll just have some fun.
Yeah, I agree. Fun is much needed these days.
Yeah, for the folks at home who are going to be watching this on catch up, because fun. That's what you need. You just need fun. Everything is just so joyless at the moment, and it's difficult. But
self-care has never been more important. And I'm saying this as a therapist.
Yeah.
You need to, even if you now you have a bunch of free time on your hands, okay, but you still need to take time for yourself. Find something that makes you happy. Find something that takes your mind off of things. And it's going to be difficult, but it's never been more important now.
I've been trying to learn a few new skills in Photoshop and things like that, learning animation, stuff I would never have done at work, because I've got a graphic design background and degree, so I've kind of been starting to learn stuff that I should have learned. But earning a living and working for somebody else, it just takes the creativity out of you. So yeah. When lockdown first started, it just felt like a vacation.
Yeah, and then it became life.
Yeah, and then after about, I'd probably say 6, 7, 8 weeks, there was a change after that. So anyway,
yeah.
Okay, my friend. I hope that wasn't too bad for you. We had a little bit of a technical with my tethering.
That's totally fine. Don't trust me. I've had technical issues in the middle of sessions.
I think I was long overdue one of those, so I do apologise. That's
totally fine.
I thank you sincerely, sir, that you've taken the time to pop on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
My pleasure. As I said, my friend, I don't think we've even really we've kind of chewed the fat on a very kind of broad range, but we've not really kind of touched the surface really with all this.
Yeah, I agree.
I was particularly interested when you said about the OCD, so I'm kind of particularly interested in that, because I do know that is a medical, a psychological condition. So I'm genuinely kind of interested in that. So shall we call it a draw at, that was 1 hour 37. That just flew.
Yeah, it did.
That just flew. So we will arrange one more of these, and then we'll just have a, good old fashioned bit of fun.
Yeah, it sounds great. It really does.
As I said to you before we came on, I watched Star Wars today just for some pure entertainment.
Yeah.
It's just so refreshing to watch something that's pure.
Yeah, I agree. It's never more important.
But that's another discussion for another day, my friend. So everybody at home who has been watching, Prismatic especially, thank you. Anybody who'll be watching this on catch up, thanks for taking the time for popping in. Just be safe. Do creative things. Being creative is very, very good for the brain chemicals. And just be good to each other, and just try and have some fun. I know it's difficult times. Hopefully, I'm sure it's going to get better eventually. We've just got to ride this one out, I think. But thank you, Master of the TDS. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody. Take care. See you soon.